Hal Lindsey.
Good evening. Welcome to this edition of the Hal Lindsey Report. People sometimes wonder why I bother to talk about the dangers of Islam. Why not just present the positive aspects of the gospel? They forget that Jesus himself warned of dangerous belief system, and he called them by name, from the Pharisees to the Nicolaitans. As a Christian minister, it is my mission to show that the gospel of Christ is not just another religion. It is the very truth of God. Sometimes that can be best accomplished by revealing the shabbiness of purely human or demonic belief systems that claim to compete with the gospel. Finally, I stand as a watchman on the wall. God has charged me to give a message of warning when I see danger on the horizon. Islam is one of the truly great dangers facing the world today. Dr. Peter Hammond is a South African missionary. He served in Mozambique, Angola, and the Sudan. He's seen firsthand the tragedy caused by the Muslim faith. By necessity, he became an expert on the subject. He writes, "The ultimate goal of Islam is not to convert the world, but to establish Sharia law over the entire world. It's critical that we understand that. Islam is not intent on converting us so much as it is intent on ruling us." Abul Ala Maududi is a famous Islamic scholar and imam. He said, "Islam wishes to destroy all states and governments anywhere on the face of the earth which are opposed to the ideology and program of Islam, regardless of the country or the nation which rules it." The purpose of Islam is to set up a state on the basis of its own ideology and program. In his book, Slavery, Terrorism, and Islam, Dr. Hammond wrote, "The primary aim of Islam is not spiritual, but political." He lays out a summary of how Muslim populations have historically behaved when entering a country as immigrants or refugees. It's a process he calls Islamization. At 1% of any given country, they will be regarded as a peace-loving minority and not as a threat to anyone. At 2 to 3%, they began to proselytize from other ethnic minorities and disaffected groups, with major recruiting from the jails and among street gangs. From 5% on, they exercise an inordinate influence in proportion to their percentage of the population. They will work to get the ruling government to allow them to rule themselves under Sharia law. From there, it gets worse fast. When Muslims reach 10% of the population, they will increase lawlessness as a means of complaint about their conditions. Any non-Muslim action that offends Islam will result in uprisings and threats. After reaching 20%, expect hair-trigger rioting, jihad militia formations, sporadic killings, and church and synagogue burning. At 40%, you will find widespread massacres, chronic terror attacks, and ongoing militia warfare. Then, with only 60% of the population, Islam fully rules. From 60%, you may expect unfettered persecution of non-believers and other religions, sporadic ethnic cleansing or genocide, use of Sharia law as a weapon, and jizya, the tax placed on infidels. After 80%, expect state-run ethnic cleansing and genocide. Writing for the Gatestone Institute, Ingrid Carlquist recently said of her native Sweden, "It may have finally begun to dawn on the people that Swedish Sweden will soon be lost forever, and in many areas replaced by a Middle Eastern state of affairs." No one, however, seems to have asked the crucial question upon which Sweden's future depends. Is Islam compatible with democracy? If the answer to that question is yes, then where are such nations? Carlquist says, there is no country where Islam is dominant that can be considered a democracy with freedom of speech and equal justice under law. Some point to Malaysia, Indonesia, and Turkey as the shining examples of Muslim democracy. But if a woman in one of those countries is deemed to show too much skin or even too much hair, she can be flogged. It's against the law to even question the Islamic faith, much less criticize it. America's founders believed you could not have a meaningful democracy without freedom of speech. Carlquist writes, politicians, authorities, and journalists all see Islam as just another religion. They seem to have no clue that Islam is also a political ideology, a justice system, or Sharia, and a specific culture that has ruled for virtually everything in a person's life. How to dress, who your friends should be, which foot should go first when you enter the bathroom. Granted, not all Muslims follow all these rules, but that does not change the fact that Islam aspires to control every aspect of human life, the very definition of a totalitarian ideology. With new asylum houses continually opening across Sweden, traditional Swedes are feeling less and less at home in their own country. They feel increasingly anxious about their physical safety and that of their families. This is happening in different ways across Europe. Folks, immigration that is not followed by assimilation is just another name for invasion.